Hello, and
Drumm
welcome to
McNaughton,
Leadership,
very late.
Tips and Change. This is our regular weekly show. I'm here with Dr. Drumm McNaughton, the change leader. And today we're going to talk about a very, very interesting topic, especially to me because it's my specialty, but dealing with difficult people in the workplace. And so we really hope that you'll be asking your questions because that's the best way to get the most juice out of our time together. And I'm Dr. Rhoberta Shaler, the relationship health doctor. And I'm in a new location today, so I don't have my beautifully printed little URLs, but here we go. You can reach me at the relationshiphealth.com, and you can also go to hijackals.com and get a copy of my free ebook, How to Spot a Hijackal. And then you can find Drumm at thechangeleader.com. So welcome, finally making it through browserland, Drumm.
Yeah, not much I could say on that one.
Well, you just had to be the change leader today.
Yeah.
Change browsers, change your attitude, change your timing, do whatever you needed to change.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way today, doesn't it?
Yes. Oh, well, these things happen, and slowly, there's always change. And, Epictetus said the only permanent thing in life is change. And so you as the change leader couldn't know that better than any other human being, and look how flexible you have to be.
Exactly. And now I put some light on the subject. What can I say? Well,
that's a good start, too. Hopefully we can shed some light on this topic as well. So yeah.
I'd like to change something up a little bit, if we might. I'd like to hear from James what he wants to hear about today.
Well, I've asked him. You can ask him. James seems silent on the subject at this point.
Okay.
But
so maybe when he picks up or sees something, maybe he can send us a message what he'd like to hear more about.
Sure, that would be great. So I'd just like to open this conversation by saying that I make a distinction between two groups of difficult people. And one are the momentarily difficult people, and the other are the chronically difficult people. Momentarily difficult people are you and I and most of the world. We have a bad moment, we have a bad day, we have a bad stage, we have a bad season, we're maybe stressed or overwhelmed or whatever. But chronically difficult people are difficult with more than one person, on more than one day, in more than one stage, and often much of the time. I call these people hijackals, and I've written about them extensively. Hijackals are people who hijack relationships for their own purposes while relentlessly scavenging them for power, status, and control. So if you happen to work with one, be the child of one, be the mother or father of one, or in the next cubicle to one, you're really going to want to get some good insights today. Because hijackals have a lot of traits that we have to be able to recognize. And Drumm, I was really thinking about it in terms of the sadness of the Orlando shootings this week. How we really all need to be able to identify or spot a hijackal if we happen to be working with them or living with them in any time. And thank you for the props, Jim. That's great. But if we happen to be working next to one, the extreme hijackal are the people who go postal. We've had a lot of that going on in our life, whether it's in a movie theater or a nightclub or a post office. And these are people who have personality issues, traits that we can identify. And it's best for us to be able to identify them early on ourselves so we know that we know how to manage it a little bit. Have you ever met a hijackal, Drumm?
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately. I just had a really interesting conversation today. I was at the barber's this morning, and he's talking about everybody needs to go out and arm themselves now to protect themselves.
Oh dear.
And yeah, exactly. It's like, why would you want to do this? Because just what you're talking about, you have momentary hijackals and then you have chronic hijackals. So you're driving down the road and you you meet somebody, you cut somebody off inadvertently, moment of road rage. The rational brain isn't engaged at that point. So if everybody's got a gun, are you going to pull out a gun and shoot that person who just cut you off? Maybe, if you've all got a gun.
Oh, well, that happens. I teach a lot of anger management programs. And what I say about that is, when somebody cuts you off, you were speaking about being the person that cut you off, but when somebody cuts you off and you go off on them, you're sitting there in the car saying things your mother wished you wouldn't ever say. And you're saying so many negative things about that other person, and you're getting yourself completely whipped up. And the other person's gone happily on their way, got exactly what they wanted, and there you are stewing yourself into a rage. Hopefully you don't have a gun. But what I call that, all that talk that you're doing to yourself, is taking poison and hoping the other person dies. I can't hear you. Your audio's cut out, Drumm. And that's really exacerbated if everybody were going around with a gun. I actually had a person in the class who had his 2 children and his wife in the car. Somebody cut him off. He went storming after them in the car. He followed them when they got off the freeway. He finally parked right in front of them and made it impossible for them to move. And he's sitting in the car, and the fellow in the other car got out, and he was like 12 feet tall and a bodybuilder of huge proportions. And I said to my client, "What did you do?" And he said, "I got back in my car and drove away." Now, come on. Let's be thinking a little more clearly than that, because you're absolutely right, Drumm. The physiological response is fight or flight. I hate this. You're out of your rational brain. You're not really thinking, yet you think you're so righteous. And there you go. Yeah, we can't hear you, Drumm. So it's really important for us to realize that we're in charge of how upset we get, and even worse, we're in charge of whether we give our power away to another human being by yelling and carrying on and doing the things that we tend to do when we're in the car alone. And of course, obviously, I've done it because I know the kind of things we tend to do when we're in the car alone. But I work very hard at not doing that, because it's giving my power away, giving my peace away. I just try to stay as calm as possible and bless them and hope that they get where they're going without killing anybody. And that's not the usual. I mean, usually we just allow ourselves to be caught. All right, we can't hear Drumm. So we have a wonderful technological challenge today. But it's really important for us to be able to distinguish between something that really requires us to bring our emotions to it, take care of it, be communicative, manage conflict well, and things that we really ought not to be giving our power or attention to at all. And so if we think of the workplace, we don't have the same freedom there that we do when we're out on the freeway. We may be in the cubicle next to that person, and we have to stay in the cubicle next to that person if we want to feed our family. Or maybe that chronically difficult person is your manager or your CEO or your boss in any capacity. And that's a problem. I teach negotiation at the University of Texas at Dallas, and I teach in the MBA program. And a student came to office hours the other day, and he said, "Well, I have this manager." He said, "May I give you an example of it? This difficult person?" Sure. He said, "First of all, I'm an engineer, so I should be doing the things that I have the expertise for and that I'm paid for." And I agreed with him wholeheartedly. "Yes, you should." And he said, "So my manager does things like this." He said, "It's a pattern. He asked me to do a task that's well below my pay grade. He asked me to keep tabs on the task in Excel to make a spreadsheet. He said, I did that. I went to him and I said, I've done that. He said to me, oh, I didn't want it in Excel. I wanted it in this other software. So my student went back and did it in the other software and came back, and the fellow said to him, why didn't you do it in Excel? And so my student said, how do we do this? He's doing the same thing to all the other people in our unit. So I suggested to him that he look at my book, Wrestling Rhinos, Conquering Conflict in the Wilds of Work. And he used one of the techniques that I outlined there. And I really think everybody ought to use this at work. And what it is after you have a meeting with someone, for example, my student having the initial meeting, he would go back to his cubicle and he would send what I call a confirmatory email to say, great to talk to you, bullet points. Here's what I understand the meeting to have contained, and do I have it right? And so please confirm, right?
Yeah, exactly. Can you hear me now?
I can. So by doing that, he did it the next day, because he was talking to me because he had trepidation about going into the meeting. So he did it, and his boss did confirm back. And I said, you know, your boss is going to recognize that when you have a paper trail, and if everybody had a paper trail, then the next step is to go respectfully to your boss. Should he change the request that he's made of you, you go and you say, I'm confused. I have this that says Excel, and I have this that says the other software. Which would you like? So he's not blaming anybody. He's just simply saying, I'm confused. I have two pieces of information. So he's dealing with a very difficult person, but he is not taking that person on. And don't take on difficult people, because it will get more difficult.
You know, difficult people at work is always a challenge, especially when it's your supervisor. What are some of the things that you would suggest that someone does when they've got a supervisor who's really difficult?
Well, as I was saying, the number one thing that I would say is use the confirmatory email. After every possible meeting, even one that takes place in the hallway where you're just checking with each other, just go back and shoot them a confirmatory email. Here's what I think we just talked about. Please confirm. And so that keeps it clean. Nobody can say that you didn't check or that it was lost in the details or whatever. That would be number one. The second would be what I just said. Never take them on directly. Never blame them. One thing about a chronically difficult person or a hijackal, same thing, is that they cannot be wrong. And let me explain why they cannot be wrong. Something happened to them when they were young. About 4% of them have this tendency in their DNA, but the rest don't. But it all happens, whether it's in the DNA or not, something happens to them that they perceived as trauma in their earlier life. And in that way, they found that they had to guard themselves very, very carefully, be very hypervigilant. So they're running two sets of control in front of them all the time. Offense, defense, nothing's getting through. They just keep running this. So they cannot be wrong, they cannot make a mistake, and you cannot nail them down. And we have a prime example right now in our political arena. I was listening to the Today Show the other day, and Natalie Morales had Donald Trump on the phone. And she said, I'd like to ask you a question. I want to play a clip from 2 days ago. And she did. And he said, I never said that. Typical severe hijackal. So she said, really? Well, here's the clip from yesterday. Now he did another severe hijackal move. He said, you media people are always after me. He did not respond to what he said. He's not taking responsibility for that, of course, because he would be wrong. So now to be right, he has to start talking about the media. Those are tricks that are in every severe hijackal's toolbox. And you have to know that. And that's why at hijackals.com, you can download How to Spot a Hijackal. And if you've read that and you say, I need more information, go to Amazon and download my book, Escaping the Hijackal Trap, Volume 1, and that will outline to you the truth about hijackals and why they're crazy making. And, you know, just using Donald Trump as an example, we cannot have a completely unstable hijackal as a person who has the ability to push a red button or to open their mouth on the red phone. It is not possible. Yeah, it shouldn't be possible. Because what happens to hijackals is that they get promoted because nobody stands up to them. I was speaking at the HR conference in California last year, and a person in my session said, well, what happens to hijackals? I said, they get promoted because nobody wants to deal with them. So whether it's a lateral move or a vertical move, they want rid of them. And slowly they manage to get into places where they ought not to be.
Yeah. So let's put that on the other side. When you've got an employee who's like this, what do you need to do as a manager?
Really good question. First of all, make sure that you've watched them and that in your own mind, or if you are a person who likes to keep copious notes, document what's going on. Start to notice that it's not just occasional. Start to notice how frequently it is. And you can't actually go to the person and say, you know, I've noticed this about you. These are the way your personality works. But what you can do is document how it affects the workplace. Like when we said in the meeting that we would all have everything to this person by Friday at 2 o'clock. And on Monday we came to a meeting and you said, well, I just didn't have it to send, so I didn't send it. Why would I? That is something that doesn't go with the values of our company, the communication of our company. We need proactive communication at least 24 hours before if you cannot complete on something. And you start doing things that have the same rules that everybody else has, right? Start there by saying, this is our company culture. This is how we do things. And use actual prime examples rather than talk about them.
So what I'm hearing you say is there are certain ways to deal with them. What if they're not willing to change their behaviors? What then?
They're not willing to change their behaviors. That's problematic. You see, this is why yes, they still need to feed their families and have a job and all of those things, but they're very unlikely to change their behaviors because they don't believe there's anything wrong. In their heart of hearts, in their mind, in their makeup, in their personality traits, they believe they are right. And it's very difficult for people to get their head around that somebody who's behaving so outrageously that so many people can see it's outrageous, and yet that person defends their behavior. So that's why you must take facts only to deal with a person in the workplace. I was called in as an executive coach to deal with a senior VP who was a high-level hijackal. But people had put up with her and made excuses for her and workarounds for her and done things for so long that by the time I got to her, she said, why should I change? I've been here for 15 years. Like complete, you know, she's talking to me about, why do I need a coach? Why did they hire you? You know, apparently everything that I do works because I've been promoted through the company. Well, there was no trail of actual factuals that would take care of, no, this is not the way we do things here. Right? Just generally, we don't do things here, and if you can't do them the way that we've all agreed to do them, then perhaps we need to part company.
Yeah.
And it all is about the facts. Don't be about emotions or whether people like them. It'll backfire.
Yeah, they tend to be large manipulators of the truth.
Yes. Yes, and exploit.
Do you find that it applies? I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback here, and I don't know why. Do you find that women, men, the same? Does it really matter, gender?
No, it doesn't matter. Men tend to be a little bit on a different spectrum of hijackals, and women tend to be on another spectrum of hijackals, but there are as many as each other. They just show up differently.
How would one show up differently than the other?
Well, you're more likely to get a seduction from both of them, right? The woman's going to be in one of two things. She's either going to be what we euphemistically call a dragon lady, my way or the highway, or she's going to be very seductive and cute, right? And that's the way she's going to try and manipulate the situation. The man is going to be seductive at the beginning, and then he's going to be demanding. So those two things hold true. But women tend to be a little less direct than the men. So the man will be more likely to be the hijackal variety who rises up and thinks that he is the master puppeteer. Like, I can say or do anything to anybody, and this finger doesn't know what that finger is doing because I'm manipulating the whole situation. The women don't quite do it that way. The way that they do it is they undermine things, right? So instead of top down, I'm running everything. No, under here, I'm telling this person that and this person that, and then now pitted against each other, and then I say, how do we get rid of these two? And yet I'm the one who pulled the strings and then came underneath and made it happen. And you know, there are obvious differences between men and women, but the hijackal traits themselves are identical.
Mm-hmm. So what can you do if you're an employee? You already talked about, you know, documenting things, but say it gets to the end where it becomes a bullying relationship, or you've got supervisors who are actually lying on evaluations. What choices do you have?
Well, this is a systemic problem. You know, you're talking about a systemic problem because the supervisors got to supervisory positions by being promoted up and out, and eventually they get into positions where they're calling the shots. So you have to, and as I suggested to the student I was speaking about earlier, there are 15 people affected by his manager, who is a hijackal. And so I told him what to try, as I mentioned already, the confirmatory email and the various things that I mentioned. And then I said, now tell all your colleagues to do the same thing. Because if there's enough body of information about facts only, you know, don't say, I don't like him or her, because that doesn't matter. You're not here to like them. You're here to collaborate with them. If there's enough people who say, here are the facts. It slid here, it fell off here, there was disagreement here, there was this happened, you know, we lost on this project because we were 3 days late. Anything that is factual and that everybody documents, then you can up-level the problem. And not until you have a real body of work. You know, it's like I tell my clients who are going to court, usually if you try to divorce a hijackal, you're going to start thinking of court as your second home. And I tell them, put each incident on a separate piece of paper, because it's kind of like whoever comes in with the biggest pile wins. Right? So have a good paper trail that everybody is following, not to be vindictive or horrible, but just say, I need a safe working environment. And I hope that every company has safety in their values. Because we're dealing with hijackals and lack of safety right now with guns, right? And that's incredible, like as you said earlier.
Yeah, I had a friend who told me about a particular case that was going on in their workplace, and I got this actually from the person's lawyer. I wasn't talking out of school because everything was protected. The lawyer was conducting a deposition on somebody, and the woman who he was conducting the deposition on was claiming a hostile workplace, and he's the person who represents the people, not the corporations. And so he asked the person something about, you know, what was going on and say, oh yeah, this has been a problem for a long time. Ask so-and-so who had left the company. And it just so happened he went back to this person. The person had done a memo for record about all the incidences that had happened. And again, about hostile workplace, sexual harassment, etc. It had never been submitted, but it was there on the computer. So he was able to use this to build a case against that particular person who was creating a toxic work environment. So they ended up suing the company and got a significant settlement out of it. Now, I'm not suggesting that suing the company is the right way to do this, but just like what you said, you have to be able to document these kind of things because, you know, the law of karma, as they say, it works slowly but grinds exceedingly fine. These things, these behaviors will come back to bite someone in the buttocks, so to speak.
Absolutely. And the thing is, don't wait. I mean, we all give people the benefit of the doubt to find out if they're a momentarily difficult person. You know, maybe they're having a hard time adjusting to a new job or a new workplace or whatever. Let's all have some latitude there. But when you start to see that this is over and over, and it's always that person, and then someone else at the coffee room is saying, well, that person did this again, and pretty soon, every time people get together off-site for lunch, all they're doing is talking about that person. Don't waste your energy that way. All you're doing is taking poison and hoping that person dies. Don't do that. Do something productive. Facts, facts, facts. And when you can back it up that way and you have a record and other people have a record, then you can go to someone and say, no, this won't work. If you go to HR or you go to the person above the manager, you go somewhere and say, we can't all be crazy. Here's what's happening. Right?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, what I've observed too many times is it doesn't really matter how much you document because that hijackal has endeared themselves one or two levels up the chain of command, even up to the board level, because they're seen as someone who can get something done. And the folks that are up there don't care about the bodies that are left in the wake.
Oh, you're so right. I mean, if of course we can talk about this another day, Drumm, but there's so much to talk about because when somebody gets results, and high-level hijackals get results, how it's a little specious, but they get results. And when that is happening, upper-level management, happy. The numbers are good. Things are moving forward. We're creative. We're innovative. We're getting the job done. It's getting on time and under budget. Who would want anything more? However, when you start seeing people walking out or saying, we can't do this, the people below them having that opinion, having that way to work with them, hopefully in an organization that has any consciousness at all, if there are 5 people who say there's a problem with one person, somebody's going to listen. Now, they may be a great producer. That may be so, and we can give them all kinds of kudos for that. However, if they left absolute chaos in their wake and the ability to reconstruct, and people are leaving, you know, like the person who left in the court case you were talking about, that person probably had a lot of the company history in their head, and it cost them $50,000 to $100,000 to replace that person, to get them up to speed. You know, between the person leaving and not working up to speed, and then getting the next person up to speed, it's a very costly process, particularly at higher levels, and it is very frustrating.
Well, you said 2 words that really resonated: hopefully and conscious. And sometimes those 2 things are mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and sometimes neither of them are there. I mean, it's so difficult, without going to make unilateral proclamations about what to do with a hijackal, because when you and I go in as consultants, we know we've got a lot of dissecting to do to get to the truth. Like when I go in and there's a problem, usually the problem's been there for years before they call me, because they keep thinking it's going to go away magically, or somebody will leave or something will happen, but nobody's willing to take action. And then by the time they call me, they're at each other's throats. There's people leaving on stress leave. The costs of medical things are going up, and they say, "What do we do? What do we do?" So it takes a while to dissect what's going on and to get to the bottom of it, because the hijackal is going to not tell you the truth. Remember, the hijackal has to win in every moment, so they're going to tell you what makes them look the best, and they're going to throw everybody else under the bus. So that takes a little longer. And then we have to.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, yeah, you're absolutely right with that.
Yeah.
The challenge. I'm sorry, I'm having feedback in the headset, so I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. There's a delay. Go ahead.
So, the challenge is, and you come in when a company's really in extremis. I come in a little earlier than that generally, and trying to get down and find out what is really going on is difficult. When the company's in extremis, there's reason for people to talk. When it's not quite there yet, it's a little bit more difficult to dissect what's really going on, which most folks don't understand why we come in and we do as many interviews as we do, but that's what's necessary to really understand the truth of what's going on.
Yes, and for me, I wouldn't say that it's actually in extremis. It's that this has become a distraction of the highest order. This person or this team or this unit, department has become I don't want to hear about it anymore. Fix it, right? That's what I hear. Just do whatever you need to do. And sometimes you get an opportunity to come in sideways. And I sometimes like those sideways things. I'll give you an example. I was called in to work with people on Camp Pendleton Marine Base. And it was a group of 30 people, and they wanted me to talk about anger management. So I'm there and I'm giving this seminar, and I'm noticing like these people are closed. They are very closed. And I'm pretty easygoing and I'm pretty open and I leave lots of spaces to talk and everything, and these people are closed. And so we go to lunch, and then I'm sitting around with a few of them, and then we come back and there's everybody waiting outside for the door to open because we are on a Marine base. And this guy comes up to me and says, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I said, "Sure, what's up?" He said, "You don't know, do you?" And I said, "I don't know what." And then he proceeded to tell me that he thought, and everybody in the room thought, that I had been brought in to talk the union out of a behavior that they had that was about supporting or going against some really negative things that they saw happening on the base. And they thought that I had been brought in to surreptitiously change their mind through my anger management seminar. And when they found out, how about that for trust in the organization? So when they found out that I wasn't that person that had been sent in, espionage and sabotage underneath the field, then they were like, "What do I do about this? What do I do about this?" And this is what happened. So we went on like an hour too long, or longer than expected, because finally they trusted me. But it's usually something that somebody up here finally says, "Throw some money and some words at them and fix that. I don't want to hear about that anymore." Now, in the case of the senior manager, senior VP, who I was called in with, who said, "I don't have a problem, so I don't know why you're here. We can sit in silence for 12 hours if you like." Okay, I don't know what happened to her, but I hope that she's found another job, because she had to, because that attitude was ridiculous. And I said to the C-suite, I said, "You guys made this problem. I can't fix her. We have to fix the problem among you and what has happened." They said, "No. You should be able to fix her." I said, "No, that's not the way it works."
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah, so a whole lot about a whole lot of things, and we had a little difficulty getting going today, but well, we really got going. So remember that if you want to learn more about Drumm and all the wonderful things that he does to help organizations, particularly nonprofits and higher education, move in a healthy, conscious direction and make a better world for all concerned, go to thechangeleader.com. And if you're kind of fascinated by hijackals and the whole idea, go to hijackals.com and download my free ebook, How to Spot a Hijackal. And if you want to work on your personal relationship or a relationship with a colleague, coworker, or your mother or your ex, go to forrelationshiphelp.com. Obviously, Drumm, I could talk about this for days, and we don't have days.
No, we both got real lives to live here.
Yes, we do. So thanks for joining us, and hope that you found some value in the conversation. If you have a question or a topic that you would like us to write about, or speak about rather, write to us at blab@forrelationshiphelp.com and tell us what you'd like us to speak about or a question that you have for us, and we'll be sure to include it in another edition. We're here every Wednesday at noon Pacific time. So always go back. You can see all the other blabs there. Just go on Blab and look up our names or look at leaderships, relationships, and change, and you'll find us. So good luck with technology, Drumm. I hope your day goes better and you can talk to other people more easily.
Me too. Thanks, Rhoberta. Always good. Always a pleasure.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.